Yeah, so the reason a lot of schools fail is they do things in the wrong order. So it's like, like if you got dressed first and then you went to the shower, it's probably not the best way of doing things. So a lot of schools make the mistake if they bring in grammar, reading and writing too early, and that only works for a tiny percentage of people. The solution to that works for a lot more people is to bring in speaking and listening right at the beginning, do that first, and then move on to the other skills, because that works for most people. Most people don't wake up saying, I really wish I could write English. It's like, they say, I really wish I could speak English. That's what they really want. And it helps with motivation and it helps with pronunciation because they're getting all the sounds in there first without all the characters messing it up and the weird spellings. They get the grammar for free because they're learning in sentences. And with the technology nowadays, they just hit the button, listen to it a million times. And then in class, they're doing the games and practicing. And that's a really easy way to do speaking. Now, if you've got a great program like Genki English, or maybe you've got another one, in 100 hours, you can actually get some really amazing results from that, from the speaking part of it. And get them confident, greater grammar, great pronunciation, loving the language, which is one of the keys. And then from then on, once you've got this base of, being able to speak in a lot of situations, you've got a few different choices. So one thing that a lot of Genki English schools do is that they then go on and they do video exchanges with kids overseas and they talk about stuff because they can speak now, and talk about stuff they love, and it's real communication. That's brilliant because that's the way the world works. That's what we want, more communication, kids between schools. If you want to go a more academic route, then once you've got a really good 100-hour speaking base, the next thing you probably want to do is reading, not writing. Again, it's the order that's important. So it's the reading first and then the writing. And the reason for that is that English is weird. It's got all these weird spellings and all these weird structures and all these weird ways of writing it down because, languages existed for a long time just spoken first before we ever wrote them down, and English took this Roman alphabet that didn't quite fit, so it's weird. And if you go straight into the writing, learning all these spellings and these rules just does your head in. Again, it only works for a small percentage of students. Much better way is do the reading, so you do the speaking, then you do the reading, and then when you're doing the reading practice, you get to see all these different weird spellings and all the weird formations and everything like that. You get used to it bit by bit. So when you do come to do the writing, which is still a huge step, throughout history, most people couldn't write. It's a big step, Want to make it smoother, then if you do the reading first, the writing becomes easier. The way you teach reading in English is by using phonics. Lots of great, in England, all the schools use phonics, one of the best systems out there. It gets really great results. It's fun, it's easy. The reason I wrote Genki Phonics was because a lot of the existing programs were for native speakers, so they were too difficult. So we did Genki Phonics to make it easier for non-native speakers. If they've only had 100 hours of speaking, then they can do Genki Phonics, do the phonics. And the reading is in two parts. First is the phonics, which gets the sounds out of your head and shows how they relate to these weird English symbols and things. And then the second part, believe it or not, is practice. It's like if you go to the gym, if you do one push-up, you're not going to get thin. You've got to do it every day. And the best way to practice the reading is with what's called graded readers. So these are books at the right level, a student's level, plus a little bit. And then so they understand most of it, but they're still learning because there's this little extra bit in there. If they're too difficult, then just give up. So you have to get this graded idea. So then the next step is they're a bit better. So they have a next level plus a little bit, next level plus a little bit, next level plus a little bit. So this graded part is really important in the graded readers. But equally important is the interest. We don't want to be saying to the kids, read this book, because as we know from generations of kids who've been forced to read Shakespeare and now hate it, again, a tiny percentage love it, but most hate it. It's when you force somebody to read something, doesn't really work. What we want is intrinsic motivation. We want them to love reading. Just like we want them to love speaking. That's why we do speaking first. So in the reading, we want them to love reading. The way you do that is by having lots of different graded readers, so that whatever level they're at, there are lots of different books at that level that will help them learn. So for example, right now, girls soccer is huge. I'm sure if somebody did a graded readers series on girls soccer, it would be like a huge hit. But some kids might be into music, or they might be into teddy bears, or they might be into interior decorating, I don't know. So the idea is, as a school, you'll get one graded reader series, and you get another one, and you eventually have this library where all kids can find stories they're looking at. I'm sure eventually soon, AI is going to be able to give personalized stories at the perfect level for their perfect interest level. Not quite there yet, but with AI, it's never as bad as it is today, so it'll always keep getting better. But for now, graded readers. So, speaking and listening together with something like Genki English, reading with the phonics, and then graded readers, and then finally do the writing for all the reasons I said before. With Genki English, we do story writing with the Story Mountain, because we find that being able to tell stories is a really powerful technique. If you can formulate your ideas into a story when you go out into the workplace or you're communicating stuff, it's much easier to say things. So we use Story Mountain, but there are lots of other ways as well. But that's the way to do it. And then finally, at the very end, that's once they've done the speaking, the reading and writing, at the very end, then you can start doing these grammar rules and things like that. There's lots of videos for those below, if you need those for the exams. But just keep in mind that that goes right at the end. Most native speakers have no idea what all these grammar rules are. And it's not because they're stupid, it's because you don't need them to speak the language. And again, most people want to speak the language, yeah? But also, if you start doing exam prep as your focus, be sure you really want to take that on. Because I spent a lot of years doing that, and it is a totally different ballgame. It's nothing to do with speaking, nothing to do with enjoying or loving reading or writing. It's purely about exams. And it's a very disciplined level with lots of different skill sets you have to learn. It's a very different thing. So if you want to take that on, awesome, because it's needed. But if you want to focus more on the language side, make sure you remember that exam prep are two different things. So don't confuse them. And certainly don't do what schools do and do the wrong order by doing these grammar rules and writing and everything too early. Get it in the right order. Speaking and listening first, reading with phonics, then graded readers, and then writing with a good writing program, maybe one of mine, maybe another one. And then you'll have students who love English, go out in the world, use it, hopefully make peace with it, and go and invent great, amazing things that make the world better for all of us. That's the idea. I'm Richard. I'm Genki English. I'll catch you later.